Our final sentence pattern blueprint is the triple-decker power. Always begin with your chart showing the students, boys and girls. We've been learning many different sentence pattern blueprints. We learned the travelers first, double the who, and now we're going to learn the triple-decker power. Let's take our triple-decker power recipe, which tells us the cards that we need in order to build this sentence. So we are going to grab an adjective, a noun, 3 verbs, and a how, why, where, when. Oh, look, adjective, noun, verb, and the how, why, when, where. These were cards that we used in our traveler sentence. What is new? We're going to add 2 extra verbs or verb phrases. We end up having 3 verbs or verb phrases in our sentence. Instead of just saying, Michael raced down the street, we could have Michael raced, dashed, and darted down the street. 3 verbs. We could have those as verbs or phrases. That's what we're going to learn using the triple-decker power recipe. A new skill added on to what we learned in the Traveler. We pulled out all of our different cards to match our recipe for our triple-decker. What are we going to write about? We've been studying in science all about butterflies and how they get their food, drinking nectar from a flower. So let's write about the butterfly. That's going to be informative, explanatory writing at the sentence level. Go to the red cards. We begin with the noun. Who or what are we talking about in this information? Butterflies. Let's decide right now. Are we going to make this a singular or a plural noun? Plural, why? Because this is information about not one butterfly, but butterflies, the group. We're going to make that a plural. Next, we need to add our 3 verb cards, either 3 verbs or 3 verb phrases. Notice up above in our sentence, we have our 2 commas with and after the second comma. Once we fill in our verb cards, we can place them in our sentence with our commas already included. What kind of verb is this? Is this for a story or is this for information? It's for information. We are going to ask the information question. What is the big idea that we are telling about butterflies in this sentence? What information are we telling about? Butterflies drink nectar. We have 1, 2, 3 verbs or verb phrases when the butterflies are drinking the nectar. We're going to give the butterflies 3 actions that they're going to go through in this information. Sometimes when you're just orally discussing it, it's difficult for kids. So I tell them, let's be the butterflies. So we're going to take our hands and be the butterflies. Let's think about our information. What are they going to do? The butterflies are going to drink nectar from the flower. That's the whole idea of this sentence. Let's act out this sentence so that we can break it apart and have 3 actions. We have our butterflies. They're flying around, landing on a flower. What do they do next? They unroll that long tongue of theirs. Then they insert it in the nectar and they sip it up. We acted that out. Let's break this up into 3 parts. Ready? Let's fill in each verb. So what's the first thing they did? They fluttered to flowers. Let's add more information about those flowers. Fragrant. They fluttered to fragrant flowers, not just any flowers, fragrant flowers. What was the next action after they fluttered? They unrolled. One of our vocabulary words that we had learned in our science was unfurl. Instead of saying unroll, we said unfurl their tubular tongues. And finally, we went to feed on sweet nectar. Notice we are keeping our verbs in present tense. They flutter, unfurl, and feed. Why? Because this is science and it's true information. Talking about what butterflies do, it's in present tense to show that this information is true. Flutter to fragrant flowers, unfurl their tongues. What kind of tongues? Tubular tongues. And then feed on nectar. Let's add an adjective here as well, sweet nectar. We put all our information on our verb cards and next we're going to place our verb cards in our sentence. We have our red cards completed. Butterflies flutter to fragrant flowers, unfurl their tubular tongues, and feed on sweet nectar. We're going to pull out our adjective card to record descriptive words to describe our subject. When we describe our subject, our noun, we always ask, what kind of? And then we think of the word ape to decide on the type of adjective that we're going to put in this what kind of question in order to choose an adjective that is precise. That's information our reader needs in order to describe the subject. I'm going to ape the butterfly. Use A for appearance, P for personality, or E for emotion. So notice our adjective card has 5 senses for appearance when we look at our faces on this card. P, personality, we can use, and also E for emotion. What would make sense in this sentence? I don't need to tell you the personality or emotion. I need to go to the appearance of the butterfly. What kind of butterflies flutter around to flowers, unfurl their tongue, and drink the sweet nectar? Adult, that's important information our readers need to know. The stage in their life, they're an adult. Let's read our sentence so far. Adult butterflies flutter to fragrant flowers, unfurl their tubular tongues, and feed on sweet nectar. We have our red and our yellow cards. We need to fill in our green cards. 3 steps that we go through when we fill in our green cards. First, information, the ideas that we need from each one of these questions about this information that we're writing in the sentence. We're going to ask the questions how, why, when, where in order to generate that specific information about the sentence and fill in the card. Once we fill in each one of those how, why, when, where cards, then we have to decide, is that information important in this sentence? Green light, go. Does each one of these individual cards belong in this sentence? Do they go in the sentence? Or are we going to insert, add to this sentence a green card? Or are we going to delete, take away that information from this sentence? Because it's not important. Our reader doesn't need to know it. Once we decide on the green cards that go in the sentence, have them travel, move in the sentence so that we can create style and variety in our sentence writing. We're going to have how ask the verbs a question. How did the butterflies flutter, unfurl their tongues, and feed on nectar? Eagerly did this, how they were hungry, so of course they were eagerly fluttering around, unfurling their tongues, and feeding on food. We put our card up in our sentence. It does not mean that that's where it belongs. We're just grouping all of our green cards at the end. Then we will decide if they belong in the sentence, and after that, move them to make sense. Next, we'll go to our why card. Why are the butterflies fluttering around to flowers, unfurling their tongues, and drinking this nectar? Then we look at our because, for, to, so, but notice I didn't use one of those starter words this time. I'm answering why, but I'm going to start with the 2 words in order. You don't always have to use these words. In this case, why are the butterflies drinking the nectar? In order to nourish their bodies. Where are these butterflies that we were learning about in science? In warm areas, and most especially we were learning about butterflies that are in the tropics. So we said deep in the tropics. And finally, when are these butterflies fluttering around, unfurling their tongues to drink sweet nectar? During warm weather. Because we know they're cold-blooded, they do this in warm weather so that they can move around. We have all the green cards in our sentence. We're going to isolate each green card and ask, is this information important? How the butterfly fluttered, unfurled, and fed on the nectar. No, I don't know if that's important. What about the why in order to nourish their bodies? This almost seems redundant, as if the reader would realize, well, of course they're drinking the sweet nectar to nourish their bodies. That makes sense. I don't need you to tell me that. So I don't need that. Where this is occurring in the deep tropics. Yes, that's important information. And when? The warm weather. Yes, that's important to know that it has to be the warm weather in which they're coming out because they're cold-blooded. Green light go. Do you go in the sentence? No, you do not. So you are gone. Green light go. Does the where and when go in the sentence? Yes, they do go in the sentence. They're staying. We have the remaining where and when cards. Let's read what our sentence sounds like. Adult butterflies flutter to fragrant flowers, unfurl their tubular tongues, and feed on sweet nectar deep in the tropics during warm weather. The final step for our green cards is to have the when and where travel in our sentence. We're moving them to the front of the sentence. We always start with our when, then our where. So we have, during warm weather, deep in the tropics, adult butterflies flutter to fragrant flowers, unfurl their tubular tongues, and feed on sweet nectar. That sounds great. I think we're ready to add our capitalization and punctuation. Starting first with capitalizing the beginning of the sentence and adding a stop to the end. We grab the first and the last card of the sentence, we take out a red pen, we capitalize the beginning of the sentence, and we put a period at the end. When you have green cards in the front of your sentence, they're introductory elements and they need a comma after the green cards. We already have our commas in place for our 3 verb phrases and our period at the end. Let's read our sentence. During warm weather, deep in the tropics, adult butterflies flutter to fragrant flowers, unfurl their tubular tongues, and feed on sweet nectar. We've taken these color-coded cards, filled them in so that you could make high-quality, sophisticated sentences using our sentence pattern blueprints. We created travelers, double the who, and triple-decker sentences. Those sentences using these cards and the sentence pattern blueprints, which are recipes to create those high quality sentences, is a cornerstone activity in my program that I highly suggest that you use to accelerate your students' writing skills. The Sentence Pattern Blueprints Kit is available for sale on my website. I highly suggest that you use this activity to help accelerate your students' sentence writing and connect writing convention skills directly to their writing so that you can increase their achievement levels. I know that you will find these cards highly engaging when you're teaching your students, and you will find great satisfaction in the results that this kit will give your students in their sentence writing.